Good morning, rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. It's Thursday Eve. Good God. The weekend can't get here soon enough. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. We're glad to have you here. Make sure you smash that like button if you're just tuning into the show today. And if you enjoy the content that you're viewing and you're not yet a subscriber, make sure you subscribe to whichever channel that you're watching us on, which is a lot of channels: Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Rumble, Kick. I freaking forget how many platforms we're on. Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku. If you're watching us there this morning, thank you very much for tuning in. Let's get this party started. Joe Biden faces some backlash for comments that he made in a video that they released in the White House Twitter account about your kids. Well, apparently they're not your kids. They're our kids. The White House and President Biden are facing a little bit of criticism over this in a tweet about LGBTQ children, in which the commander-in-chief declared these are our kids. Kind of weird. Creepy stuff. For the profile pic or the thumbnail pic of the video today, I tried to get AI to generate a photo of Joe Biden sniffing kids, and I thought it was quite ironic that artificial intelligence refused to generate a picture of Joe Biden sniffing kids. Why? Well, because it's inappropriate, which I think it's inappropriate too, but that's reality, isn't it? Isn't it interesting when woke AI is actually more conservative than the president of the United States is?
Look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there with her, like a little lady with her legs crossed.
Okay, that's weird, Joe. A little bit too early for that. Anyways, we'll play that video. We'll talk about it. Even Elon Musk responded to that tweet. We'll get to that in just a minute. Old workers complaining about young workers. The story went viral the other day in the New York Post about why Generation Z is the hardest generation to work with. Well, Generation Z wasn't having it, and they slapped back or snap back. What do we call it anymore these days? What are the kids calling it these days? I don't know. But they actually slapped back and said, I'm going to say slap back, I don't know. And wrote a piece about why the older workers, why boomers are the hardest generation to work with. It's generational warfare, and you know what? It makes good content. So we'll talk about it this morning on 718. And at 7:35 today, I'm so proud of my good buddy, Joe Trotter. He works at the American Legislative Exchange Council as their communications director. And he's going to be talking to us today about testimony that he gave in Congress the other day in support of Congressman Thomas Massie's Prime Act, which, if you're not familiar, the Prime Act is a bill that would essentially allow small producers of livestock to be able to do an end run around federal rules that prevent them from being able to sell their meat directly. Massie complains that big agriculture lobbyists who are posing as friends of small farmers oppose this bill. And the other day he did get a hearing for it. Joe Trotter managed to get a spot to testify in Congress in support of the Prime Act. And well, Joe was in my wedding, so he's a good friend of mine, so you might say. And so he's joining us this morning at 7:30 a.m. to give us a breakdown of this bill, what went on in the hearing, what the Prime Act is all about, and how it would help to bring down food prices for people like yourself and myself. Last night, my wife made the most delicious, the most perfect ribeye steak that I think I've ever tasted. I've got to give it up for Stephanie. She went from being a vegetarian when I met her to now she doesn't eat meat, but she sure likes the bone. Mary Mo. Okay, sorry, shut up, Austin. They don't want to hear you sing. She's a vegetarian. Mary Mo, Mary Mo. Oh, sorry. All right, shut up, Austin. Let's go. Good morning, EBC 2021. Good morning, Anna Maria. Anna Maria, grazie, plena, dominus tecum. Nice to see you. Hot Water 84 is here with us today. Rare Camellia is here. Corey C. is joining us, as well as Mary Kramer, John Rail, Hikaru K. Arigato gozaimasu. Ohayo gozaimasu. Chris Morrell's here with us as well. Nice to see everybody here. Barney Styles as well. What's up, Barney? How you doing, brother boy? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. At 8 o'clock this morning, the lovely Camellia Peterson will be joining us in here today. Everybody loves a good CJ segment. Honestly, CJ is such a great interview, and she always does such a terrific job on the show that we have her on twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I always look forward to it because I know by the time I get to my second interview, I'm like, the week is almost over. And CJ's always just fun to talk to anyway. But what are we going to talk to her about, Johnny? At 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to Amelia Peterson about the surging Robert F. Kennedy Jr. His poll numbers continue to rise. His popularity within the Democratic Party, I think, is scaring a lot of the Democratic establishment. I saw James Vanderbeek did a video last week that I posted about him talking about how a full quarter of the Democratic Party would like to hear from and see Robert F. Kennedy debate Joe Biden. Now, we all know that's not going to happen, but at least we're going to keep an eye on, at least we're going to enjoy watching Joe Biden and his supporters sweat. Should be good stuff. All right. Click that like button as you're tuning in this morning. Like you, Agorizer. How about you? Nice to see you, brother. At 8:30 this morning, Daniela Pensack is joining us because she's now a weekly regular as well. She's been on vacation, though, for a couple of weeks. How dare you?
How dare you?
But she's back, and she's going to be joining us for her regular Thursday segment today to talk about that story that I touched on yesterday about the white Starbucks manager who was fired after the arrest of two black men. As an act of retaliation, she received $25 million from Starbucks for anti-white racism. They called it reverse racism, which implies that racism really only goes in one direction, but that's not true, as we all know. And she's got a couple of other interesting stories as well. We'll talk to her about at 8:30, and we're looking forward to it. Before the show is over, hopefully I'll be able to get to the fun story before we kick off. We would call stories like this kicker stories. And I know Camellia is really going to enjoy this one, and everybody's going to enjoy it, but Camelia's going to be like, she's because she hates 1980s fashion, which, as you can see from the way that I dress, I love it. Regrettable fashion choices of the 1980s. And we're going to talk about what some of the more regrettable fashion choices were from the 1980s. And Camellia is just going to be all over it like stink on turds because she hates 1980s fashion.
No, God!
And I love it.
God,
I think
please,
it's amazing.
No!
As you can tell.
No!
All right. Just don't call the fashion police.
FBI, open up!
All right, here we go. The top of the show, ready to roll. The White House says that your kids are not your kids. They're our kids. Take a listen.
These are our kids. These are our neighbors.
Yeah.
Not somebody else's kids. They're all our kids.
Yeah.
And our children are the kite strings that hold our national ambitions aloft. It matters a great deal how we treat everyone in this country. LGBTQ Americans, especially children, you're loved, you're heard, and this administration has your back.
LGBTQ, did he say the plus there? Hold on, wait a second. I said LGBTQ, wait.
LGBTQ Americans, especially.
You forgot the I and the plus. What does the plus stand for, Joe? What does the plus stand for, Joe? What's in the box? What's in the box? All right. Well, Joe, he's obviously getting a little bit of pushback on it from his from some people, even in his own community. But of course, Elon Musk was the biggest critic of this one, saying they are not your kids. Yeah, he says our kids are not fodder for the government. You are the government. They are not your kids. Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis also took issue with the Biden campaign, saying they are not your kids. Polling company Rasmussen reports in a Twitter post that a May 18th survey of likely voters in California found that 64% likely voters in California disagree with the statement, there's no such thing as someone else's child. Our nation's children are all of our children. This is the collectivization of society, right? This is the cultural Marxism. And it doesn't even fly that well in California. 64% of likely voters in California disagree with the idea that there's no such thing as someone else's child, right? So, America disagrees with Joe Biden. Even 58% of Democrats disagreed with the notion that children in the United States belong to everyone. The Republican National Committee also weighed in, tweeting that the idea that kids are not somebody else's kids, they're all our kids, is now one of the Biden administration's main messages. Kids belong to their parents, not the government. Of course, this backlash comes one day after the White House banned that transgender influencer Rose Montoya after she flashed her boobies at Biden's Pride Party. Footage that came out of Montoya, which we showed a couple of days ago, where she bared and cupped her breasts just after meeting Joe Biden on the White House lawn, went viral. and forced the White House to rebuke her actions. The behavior is inappropriate, they said. But hey, when you invite strippers onto the White House lawn, what do you expect? You get strippers, right? When you hire a prostitute, what do you expect? Get this. But I mean, the interesting thing about that California poll is I read this other article this morning, which I would like to share with you, about a state senator who is telling parents to flee his state amid a bill that would take kids away from, quote, non-affirming parents. What's fascinating is that when it comes to people, what people will say in regards to polls, so Rasmussen says, 68% of California voters disagree with the idea that, that your kids are our kids. They'll say one thing, but the reality is quite different. They will actually, California voters will vote for policies that essentially collectivize our children anyway. And here's a perfect example of this one. A California state senator told a gathered crowd of parents at the California Senate Judicial Committee to flee the state 2 days ago during a hearing on the bill, which would put parents who don't affirm their child's gender transition in danger of child abuse charges. Okay. So here we have an actual policy which is about the collectivization of our children. So people will say one thing when it comes to how they feel about kids. Oh, no, of course, these aren't our kids. Well, do you think the government should be able to punish parents who don't affirm their child's gender that was forced onto them by their teacher in their communist public schools? Well, of course they should be able, they should have to do that. Of course, we should absolutely do that, right? But they're not our kid, but they're my kids. But I'm going to vote to make them everybody's kids. Am I wrong here? Or you know what I'm saying here, right? Where monkey see, monkey do, right? But monkey says one thing, but monkey does another thing. This is how we've gotten to the place that we're at in America, where you have people who will say, I want this, but what they really want is something else. It's what we call, I think in psychology, they call it stated preferences versus revealed preferences. And the way that I have seen this come up most often is how people claim what people say they want versus what they actually want in regards to the media. So a lot of studies have been done on the type of media that people will prefer, and they'll say things like, well, what I want in terms of news is hard-hitting international news coverage that's unbiased, quality journalism. But when you give people that option, versus pap or tabloids or top 10 listicles or things like that, they're going to watch that every time. And as a matter of fact, like that survey that I read, it was probably a decade ago when I first started really trying to break into the media. That survey actually really impacted how I built my news platforms, because I'm an activist libertarian, right? Not a party libertarian. I know people always get those confused, but I'm a small L libertarian. I believe in limited government. And so knowing that the things that I would really love to discuss are for hours on end, treatises of James Madison's and the Constitution. And certainly we do have the judge on here and we go into big brain time. But the fact of the matter is that I make the Wake Up America show fun and I pull out the 1980s things because I know that I've got to be able to keep people's attention. I've got to be able to entertain you in order to keep your attention so that I can hopefully give you a little bit of that big brain content that I think people will want, right? So people will come for the 1980s fashion that are regrettable choices, and hopefully they will stay and they will stick around for the discussions about actual policy, which is going to happen at 7:30 when Joe Trotter comes. I almost said Joe Biden. What a terrible thing to do. Don't say that, Austin. Joe Trotter. No, Joe's like, no,
God!
how dare you?
Oh, God, please, no! No!
When we actually get to
No!
the substantive, when we get to the meat, where's the beef? Well, it's in the Prime Act. And so knowing people's psychology when it comes to news, you can see that same psychology played out in how people vote. So this is a Democratic senator in California. Senator Scott Wilk is one of here we go. Oh, hey, excuse me. I'm sorry. Senator Scott Wilk is a Republican from Santa Clarita in California, and he was the lone voice warning against language in AB 957. This is what a Democratic senator has amended to rewrite the California Family Code to list gender affirmation alongside a child's need for health, safety, and welfare. He says, I've been here and I've witnessed a full frontal assault on charter schools, taking away parents' choice and how their children are going to be educated. In recent years, we have put government bureaucrats between parents, children, and doctors when it comes to medical care. And now we have this bill where if a parent does not support the ideology of the government, children are going to be taken away from the home. So when Joe Biden says, these are not your children, these are our children, these are the kinds of bills that support that. So it doesn't matter if 63% of California voters say that they don't agree with the words that Joe Biden has said. It doesn't matter at all. What matters is how people vote and support legislatively, what kind of representatives they elect to go to their state capitals and to our federal capital, and what kind of legislation those people advance. And at the end of the day, I guarantee you that the majority of California voters are going to vote for the kinds of bills or legislation and representatives that are going to advance those kinds of policies. Am I wrong? Send me a text, 573 319 1586. That's 573 319 1586. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this matter. Again, you can text the show, and I'm told that I should say this very slowly, at 573 319 1586. It's good to see all of our friends over on Rumble this morning. Hey, how are you doing? Make sure you click that like button. We're grateful to have Bell R, my lovely wife, Steffi P for Liberty over there, Nelson65, Mr. Embry, Fed Up Kentuckian, European Tin Beater, which I believe is an actual European joining us, Mo Donald 1672 joining us this morning as well over on Rumble. Do us a favor, if you haven't already, click that like button. Now, I know that a lot of people who watch us on Rumble aren't signed into an account on Rumble, and that's why they can't click that like button. So if you would do us a favor, hit us up over there and click that like button and sign in. Oh, European Tin Beater says, no, he's not in Europe. Okay, well, that's nice to know. Hot Water 84 says, I'm 100% right. Well, thank you very much. Of course. You forgot to mention attractive. Let's see what else have we got on the docket for her today. God, I saw this video yesterday and it just blew my mind. But this is the kind of stuff that people have to deal with all the time, with this home invasion. Check out this video of this guy with a knife showing up to somebody's house, walking in, and I just kind of want to dissect it for a brief moment. Look at this. Look at this. Watch this real quick. Hold on. Let me pull over our Twitter scene. Okay, this is a guy, this is a porch pirate. My wife and I, we love to watch these porch pirate videos. Person
You are now watching Doorbell News.
Okay, we're watching Doorbell News. Now watch this. Watch this guy pull up. He's got a knife. Walk right up to this guy's door. Check this out.
Houston, Texas. Better grab.
Now, first of all, how are you gonna walk into somebody's house in Houston, Texas with a knife? I mean, are you stupid or something?
Have that Second Amendment.
Hello. Hey. How are you? Hey, back up. Yes, sir. Back up. Have a good day. Back up. Back up. Get off my driveway. Back up. Sir, I did. You have a gun with you? Jesus Christ.
Do you have a gun with you? Jesus Christ. Now, this guy is obviously some kind of lunatic, right? So he walks
Second
into the guy's...
Amendment.
Hello. Hey.
Hello. Okay, so he walks in, he's like, hello. You know, he's standing there holding the knife.
How are you? Hey, back up. Yes, sir. Back up. Have a good day. Back up.
So he goes, back up. You know, sir, have a good day. Imagine if he didn't have a gun because the guy gets agitated from him telling him to leave.
Back up. Get off my driveway. Back up. Sir, I did.
You know, sir, I did. He's like trying to tell the guy off, like, you know, you don't need to tell me to leave your house. You don't need to be so rude about it when I walk in your house with a knife.
Gun with you? Jesus Christ.
Do you have a gun with you? Jesus Christ. Yeah, this is Houston, bitch. Get off my property. Yeah, well done, sir. Didn't even have to shoot him. All right. Anyway, so on the topic of they're not your kids, they're our kids, a bunch of middle schoolers protested pride celebrations at their school wearing red, white, and blue clothing instead of rainbow clothes and chanted, "The USA are my pronouns." They took down the pride flags. Good for you, kids. Take a listen to this.
These displays of intolerance and homophobia
are unacceptable.
Oh no, these displays of homophobia, the American flag, and intolerance. Oh no, shut up, bitch.
Intolerant rhetoric starts in the home.
Parents angry
The
at
intolerant rhetoric starts at home. Shut up, bitch.
town hall over intolerance at Marshall Simons Middle School.
Intolerance at Marshall Simons Middle School.
Kids were asked to wear rainbow clothes in honor of Pride Spirit Day.
Why are you asking kids to dress up gay? What the hell is wrong with you? Is it bad enough that they have 80s Day? I know, Camellia, you're like, eh.
But some organized a counter-protest wearing red, white, and blue or black. The principal sharing a statement to families that Pride posters were ripped down, stickers ripped up. Some students chanted, "USA are my pronouns," and students...
Oh, not USA are the pronouns. FYI, apforlibertyshop.com. We have a shirt that says, my pronouns are we the people. So check it out over at apforlibertyshop.com.
showing pride were intimidated.
It was an unruly disruption.
Dude, it was an unruly disruption. Look at this lady's cry. She got the crazy eyes, you know, like every middle school teacher and stuff like that. God, I'm so glad that I'm out of school. Aren't you like glad that you don't have to go to school? I feel bad for these kids, don't you? Having to deal with this kind of, you know what?
Were intimidated.
It was an unruly disruption, in fact, that was organized ahead of time.
While some
It was an unruly disruption that was organized ahead of time. Well, maybe it was a disruption for you to gay up the school when they're supposed to be paying attention to class and not thinking about each other's genitals, courtesy of their teachers. Why are their teachers making kids talk about each other's penises and lack thereof?
Some parents were upset, others say it was overblown.
Some of the kids threw the stickers on the ground. But, you know, I can only speak for my daughter. She didn't want to wear that to school. It's not that she wanted to hurt anybody's feelings.
She says her daughter felt coerced to participate in the Pride event and
They threw the stickers on the floor. No!
was offended by some of the messages, like this quote from Tennessee Williams.
Human heart cannot be straight. It is curves and winds. And my daughter just kind of said, you know, Mom, that's offensive to me, who I am straight.
But even parents like her, opposed to the Pride Month celebration, say the ripping of posters was wrong.
I think destructing any property is wrong. I think, you know...
Why are they putting them up at the school? Like, why are they endorsing sexuality? It's middle school, for God's sakes. You're supposed to be learning basic algebra. In my case, failing basic algebra.
I just think that was wrong.
Parents and community groups now calling for the town and school board to act and support diversity, equity, and inclusion. The incident sparking discussion at home on both sides.
Chris Morrow asking the real questions over on the live stream. He says, why does it feel like the news is now just all trans all the time? It's a psyop, brother. It's all a psyop.
I think that I teach my
I
kids
feel like I need a cigarette. It's like, I just don't care for this particular psyop.
is just be kind, and I wish the schools would just kind of pump the brakes on what they're shoving down these kids' throats.
The issue
Thank
of
you.
pride in schools is very controversial. I understand that. I think we need to start at a place of commonality.
Now, the principal says that no one was forced to participate in the Pride Day event, but now parents on both sides want dialogue. Live in Burlington, Sean Shiabat, WCVB News Center 5.
Next week, they're going to be teaching kids how to jerk each other off in the gayest sex show possible, where they were bringing the drag queens for sexual assault. There you go. News at 11. All right, coming up next, let's get off the trans stuff. What do you say? Let's talk about the big brain stuff. My buddy Joe Trotter joining me. He testified in the halls of Congress the other day in favor of Thomas Massie's Prime Act. If you love delicious steaks, burgers, and ribs, this segment is for you. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that
God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Smash that like button if you're tuning in just now. For the very first time, make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well. The Wake Up America show is every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central, and we fight for economic freedom and personal liberty. So if that's what you're all about and you want to get that 5 days a week to get your day started right, make sure you sub. All right, the Prime Act. Where's the beef? Congressman Thomas Massie, one of the heroes of liberty up there on Capitol Hill, has been fighting to deregulate the meat industry so that we can get cheaper prices and fresher beef available as much as we'd like. Well, he finally got a hearing for his bill the other day, and he invited an expert to testify in favor of that bill. Joining us now is that gentleman. His name is Joe Trotter. He works at the American Legislative Exchange Council, and he's joining us live right now. Good morning, Joe. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Joe, so give us a real quick breakdown, the Reader's Digest version, if you will, of what the Prime Act is and what it would do.
Okay, so the way meat processing and slaughtering currently works in America is if you're going to sell over state lines, you have to do it with a USDA inspector on site, taking a look at the cow, like before it gets slaughtered, as it gets slaughtered, after it gets slaughtered, and then while it's being processed. Now, if you're selling within state lines, some states partner with the federal government. They are subject to exactly the same regulations, exactly the same everything that you are for the federal, except a state inspector is allowed to go ahead and do the inspection during all of that. But the thing is that the vast majority of slaughterhouses and the vast majority of meat packers in the country are like 1 or 2 man operations. And they are only allowed to do their job for people who are consuming like pigs and pork and cows for personal consumption. So if you've ever heard or they're one of the people who bought half a cow or bought a quarter of a cow, you actually bought a live cow that then the farmer took as your agent and had slaughtered and shipped to you. You did not buy a cow that was already dead. So the idea behind the Prime Act is that these independent custom slaughterhouses, custom packagers would actually be able to go ahead and sell to your local farm-to-table restaurant, sell to a hotel, sell to a local grocer. And basically the problem here is that four processors, 4 companies, control 85% of the grain-fed beef in the country. They all come from 4 companies. Less than 50 of the slaughterhouses actually do something like more than 95% of all beef in America. But there are these thousands and thousands of small businesses across the country who are able to do this. They just don't have an inspector on site. But if people want to choose to have, a cow from down the road, that should be their choice. And the Prime Act would lift the federal prohibition on these small producers selling to local companies.
Sounds like common sense to me, but apparently not everybody on Capitol Hill agrees. Good morning. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, it's nice to see you here today. Thanks so much for joining us. We got over 100 people watching us live today, which is a nice big number. Thank you very much for that. If you're joining us now and you're enjoying the content that you hear, make sure you click that like button. I'm speaking to Joe Trotter. He works at the American Legislative Exchange Council, and he testified in Congress the other day in support of Congressman Thomas Massie's Prime Act, which would help to deregulate the industry to help us to get fresher beef on our tables at a lower price. So, Joe, where is the resistance to this coming from? I mean, why wouldn't Congress pass this bill in order to help, especially in these inflationary times, to help us get lower cost beef? Because I don't know if you've seen the cost of a ribeye or a strip steak these days, but you really got to be making a lot of money to be able to afford to eat beef regularly anymore.
Yeah, Austin, on average across the United States, beef prices are up more than 20%, and that's for a lot of reasons. But what's going on, this is a bipartisan bill. There are people on both sides of the aisle who like it. And it tends to be pretty well received, except a lot of the major players in the industry, the 4 biggest companies, lobby hard against this, which is funny because this would only nibble around the edges of their profit margins. But it would bring increased food security because during the COVID pandemic, some of these processors had to shut their operations for a while. And we saw just shortages of meat across the nation. Grocery store shelves were bare in a lot of places for beef and pork. So the resistance here is from the major companies. It's not drawn along partisan lines. And at the hearing itself, it was very interesting. Most people on both sides of the aisle actually agreed with the Prime Act. What was interesting was the Democratic component were arguing that the problem here is more there are these 4 large businesses. They looked at this more as an antitrust thing, as like a non-competitive marketplace. And it seemed they were leaning in their direction of saying we need to break up these major companies. But the answer is the free market. The answer is competition. The answer is, empower these small businesses, let them engage in their local communities, let people get beef from where they want to, and not necessarily the Chinese or Brazilian companies that actually control 2 of these 4 large businesses.
Now, Joe, when I pull up the news on the Prime Act, I see a lot of men with big, tall, 10-gallon hats speaking out against the Prime Act. They say it poses risks to food safety and cattle producers' bottom lines. Food safety concerns are said to require the defeat of the well-intentioned Prime Act. So can you address that 2-part question there? One, the risk to food safety that the cattlemen are saying that it poses, as well as their bottom lines?
Yeah, so these small producers would not have a USDA inspector or a state inspector on site at all times. And that's basically only the larger operations can afford everything that goes into getting the permit to get this inspector on site. But the thing is that these, 1,500 plus producers, the small ones, the custom slaughterhouses, have been operating for 40 plus years. This goes back a long ways. They haven't had these major problems that some of the larger producers have. So in 2014, there was this horrifying incident where just a single USDA inspected facility, they let a few cows get through that weren't fit for consumption. And ultimately, they had to recall 8.7 million pounds of beef because of just a few cows getting in there. it got recalled from half a dozen plus states, and it all got incinerated. We're talking more than 12,000 cows were cross-contaminated here. So when the large players are harping about food safety, the problem with large producers is that cross-contamination is incredibly likely. When you have this small concentration of just all of this, when something goes wrong, it goes horrifically wrong. There is no single person, no single operation, no single entity that would benefit from the Prime Act that would even be producing more than 8 million pounds of beef in a year. We're talking about mom and pop shops who are still subject to inspection. The USDA does come through at least once a year. State authorities do come and inspect. Local authorities do come and inspect. They just don't have somebody on site all the time the way these major producers do. So is it risk-free? No. But the interesting thing is there's a federal label. When it's federally inspected, the meat gets a stamp. When it's state inspected, it gets a stamp. But these local producers are going to be branded as, being the farmer or the cattleman up the road. So people are going to have to accept whatever risk. But let me ask you, are you going to feel more safe when there are tens or hundreds or millions of cows going through one facility each year, or the guy down the road whose business solely rests on their reputation, who deals with maybe 2 or 3 cows a day?
I only feel safe when Joe Biden tells me how to feel in the mainstream media. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Grateful to have you here. It's nice to see such a big audience this morning. Let's give it a round of applause. I know it's because of that handsome guy that you're looking at right now, and Joe Trotter's good looking, pretty good looking too. He works at the American Legislative Exchange Council. He's talking to us about testimony that he gave in support of Congressman Thomas Massie's Prime Act, which would empower local beef producers across the country to be able to bring that farm to table, to make farm to table an actual reality, actually from the farm to the table, not through, agent, the TSA for the USDA, if you will. But talk to us about the prices and what impact that would have on the cattlemen, because Joe, I think probably a lot of, especially people here in Missouri who listen into the show, we do get a lot of local listeners here. A lot of them have cattle and probably would like to engage in this form of commerce. But the Cattlemen's Association says that this would harm their bottom line. They say that prices would go down and that would be a concern to small cattle producers. Do you think that that's the case?
Well, look, prices would go down for a couple of reasons. So in keeping it local, and the way it is now with the state inspected facilities and the federal inspected facilities, they are operating a lot of the time at max capacity. A lot of the time, you have to actually book an appointment at a slaughterhouse before the animal is even born, because there is that much demand, and there is that much demand on the market. The amount of beef and the amount of pork Americans consume has only gone up in the last 40 years since these federal restrictions went in place. But by opening up these shops, it would, your local, the closest slaughterhouse you have may not have a date anytime within a reasonable time frame. So you might have to go to the next one, but they might not also. A lot of times these ranchers are trucking their cows hundreds of miles across state lines. By keeping it local and by empowering these small local businesses, they can just go down the road, and the transportation cost is less. None of us want to see the animals suffer. Being stuck, for 3 to 10 hours in the back of a truck isn't great for them. So, yeah, the transportation costs go down, and it's kept local. It's good for everyone, except for the large producers who are, doing millions of pounds of business a year.
Joe, is there anything else about this that you'd like to share with our listeners, or anything else in general that you'd like to share with us before we let you go?
During the pandemic, I lived out on a farm out in West Virginia, and my next door neighbor has 10 cows or 10 cattle. And on my other side, I have a local custom shop, like the one I'm talking about. But if I wanted to buy the meat from the cow next door, he would have had to truck it 150 miles essentially to the nearest USDA or state inspected facility. And that's completely ridiculous. This is absolutely just a common sense piece of legislation. And it's got bipartisan support, but doesn't have support from the large industry players. And it would be nice to see Congress go ahead and empower the little guy.
Well, we appreciate you going out and testifying in support of this legislation. Joe Trotter, he lives and works in Washington, D.C. and fights for your liberty, so you don't have to go there and be in that stinky swamp. Hey, Joe, we appreciate you very much. You looked really good up there, and congratulations on your first testimony in Congress. I'm sure it won't be your last, brother. Hope to see you again real soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That's Joe Trotter. He works at the American Legislative Exchange Council. You can follow him over on Twitter at The Trot Spot. That's TROTTSPOT, not the trots. He's more like hot to trot, not like, the other kind of trots. We'll be back with more about employees, about how the boomers feel about the Generation Z, and the Generation Z feels about the employers in the workplace. They're the boomers in the workplace. It's generational warfare on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
To the Cantina crew, this is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter, and I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors, what would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Grateful to have you here on the program today. What do you think of Joe Trotter? Wasn't he great? It's nice to know that we do still have a few freedom fighters out there in Washington, D.C. trying to protect our economic liberties and our right to eat delicious beef at an affordable cost. Wouldn't it be nice if we could actually get the Prime Act passed? But you know what happens when big business and big government get in bed together? They collude against the rights of the people. All right, it's time for us to talk about something else for a few minutes until Camellia Peterson comes and joins us on the show at 8 a.m. We're going to talk to CJ about the rise of Robert Kennedy Jr. and his stunning amount of popularity in the Democratic primary for president against Joe Biden. We'll talk to her in about a little bit less than 10 minutes. But I saw these two stories back to back that really made me crack up, and I thought you would like to hear about from the New York Post. It started with this story about how employers were revealing why Generation Z is the hardest generation to work with. And you probably hear that and you either roll your eyes or you're like, yeah, those youngsters, they don't know how to work in a workplace. And I read this last week. I was going to share it with you on the show, but I just probably ran out of time. And then I saw this counterpoint piece that came out yesterday, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I have to talk about it, which is saying that millennials and Gen Z are now unleashing on the work habits of the boomer generation, right? So it's generational warfare, and it always makes great content. According to a recent survey of 1,300 managers, 3 out of 4 agree that Generation Z is harder to work with than other generations, so much so that 65% of employers say they have to fire them more often. 1 in 8 have let go of a Gen Zer less than 1 week after their start date, the study found. And the results apparently ring true with managers across the United States in various industries who report that young hires have been difficult to deal with, particularly when it comes to language. Interesting. One manager in New Jersey in the hospitality industry says, I feel kind of hamstrung on what I can and can't say. I don't want to offend anyone or trigger someone. I always have it in the back of my mind that I'm going to get angry one day and I'm going to get freaking canceled. Hilarious. Another manager who manages Gen Z employees at a tech company says the biggest difference I noticed was just a difference in professionalism. I think the pandemic had a big role to play for them because this is their first job out of college after they spent years were spent remote. Starting their careers during the pandemic may have stunted Gen Z's office etiquette. In fact, 36% of survey respondents reported poor communication skills among their young hires. Have you noticed things like that? I'd be curious. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. One manager says that Generation Z, all exhibit the same weird office behavior. They don't know how to conduct themselves in a business setting. I was taught how an office operates, whether it's dealing with a hierarchy or just something as simple as when someone's in front of you, you look them in the eye. But another major complaint that managers had about Generation Z was distractibility. 36% of managers agreed Gen Z has a hard time concentrating, right? They could be on team calls and you'd be able to tell that they were on their phones. If we called on them, it was like deer in headlights. You can tell that they hadn't been paying attention. Well, we're going to get to the meeting thing here in just a moment when we get to the antipode of that. An anonymous electrical construction manager agrees their phone addiction hurts office culture. They're phone zombies. The lunchroom used to be a blast. Talking crap was part of the fun. Now most just keep their heads down and scroll. Oh God, who wants to have fun during their lunch breaks in the office? I remember like when I first started my career and I was working at the toy store, FAO Schwartz in New York City, and yeah, it was like everybody talking crap in the lunchroom, and it was actually kind of annoying, to be honest. But cell phones weren't as ubiquitous as they are now. But then the opposite of this, like the antipode of this, millennials and Generation Z are now unleashing. They're responding to this, talking about the work habits of baby boomers, saying that they're power hungry and they can't Google, which is pretty funny. Young workers are constantly being called out for the way they work, but what about the older generation? With the cultural focus on Gen Zers and millennials, while they have changed the way that they work, now they're turning the tables on the boomers, people who are 57 to 75, saying they could do better. According to a young Generation Z person, boomers are far too liberal when using the reply all button. Young people are much more personal with their approach to work and don't like their business broadcasted to the entire company. Amen. Reply all is only when you absolutely need every person that's in this conversation to hear what's going on, to have a record of those emails. Too much reply all is annoying. Absolutely. Boo, boo, boomers. Also, the Generation Z is fed up with the unnecessary phone calls they get, right? One person says she's so enraged that she added 3 exclamation points to highlight the severity of her complaint. Fed up with unnecessary phone calls. Yes, people are really upset with phone calls. They don't like them there very much. Cheeky Mayor on the live stream says, I work with a bunch of machinists and welders. They talk crap all the time. Men who work with their hands tend to be more based. Based on what exactly? Clearly, boomers missed the memo. Young people don't actually talk on the phone, and Gen Zers don't realize how much boomers value a chat over a cold email. That's interesting. Yeah, I do prefer the email to like the phone call these days, but I'm a millennial. One Zoomer says that they are more annoyed that boomers tend to eat up your time with questions they could answer to themselves via the internet, asking technology questions they could easily Google. Thank you. So annoying. One Zoomer says that she's frustrated by their outdated outlook on work KPIs. They count minutes instead of outcomes as a measure of productivity, right? Time spent working versus actual output. One Generation Z says she's sick of the outdated language that some are still spewing into office culture. Passive-aggressive loves or darls, she explained, was her main gripe. See, that's why the managers were upset that they can't say anything to Generation Z. You can't say love, you can't say darling, right? You can't do anything like that. But you get canceled for that kind of stuff, to be honest, and you do. Another one says that she's more obsessed with the damage they're doing to the environment. Why do they have to print everything? While one says that their obsessions with promotions are tedious. They're just so power hungry, she complains, right? Or why does everything have to be so official? Why do we have to have a formal meeting? They just love creating stale environments. First of all, nothing wrong with printing things out so you can read it and highlight it and mark on it and, take it down. Not everything has to be on a digital screen. Besides, every time that you kill a tree, they plant a tree. So you're actually saving the trees by killing trees. Anyways, I got to go talk to Camellia about how Robert F. Kennedy Jr. be taking over everything in the Democratic Party. We've got a lot of libertarians on his side, too. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway.
I need help.
You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Don't we just have the best guests on the Wake Up America Show? You damn right we do. As a matter of fact, our next guest is a regular. She's Camelia Peterson, and she works at Americans for Prosperity. She's also a mom, and she's basically naked, if you could see from the photograph that you can see right now, because her hair is actually covering the spaghetti straps. Camelia, do you want to just like let it? There we go.
Naked.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we just the framing of that is a little bit odd. Good morning, Camelia. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I had one of those like super creepy house millipede things with a billion legs in the shower when I got in this morning, and I survived. So it's going to be a good day.
That's good. That's good. That's funny that you said that, Millipede. You actually just like triggered a memory for me. Like last night, I was dreaming about not millipedes, but like the venomous centipedes. Have you ever seen those things before? That's weird. So I actually had a dream last night. It literally just triggered that memory that I had one crawling all over me. It was one of the giant ones. Did I tell you that my buddy Brandon Ellison was in the jungles of Thailand and he actually got bit by one?
No. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, so he actually was like camping in the jungle for some freaking reason, and a giant poisonous venomous centipede climbed into his what do you call it, sleeping bag, and bit him in the middle of the night. Oh my God, can you imagine?
That's the stuff of nightmares. No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right. Well, speaking of nightmares, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. apparently is a nightmare for the Democrats. He is running for the Democratic nomination for president. He has a higher favorability rating than many of the other 2024 presidential candidates, according to a new poll. What is the deal with the popularity of RFK Jr.? He just is kind of like hitting on all like the key points that 2024 voters are really into. And I mean, you know, I kind of like the fact that he makes some people uncomfortable. It's kind of fun to watch.
Well, sure. You know, I was thinking about this because I'm thinking about who do I hear that talks about RFK Jr. the most? Like
the Libertarians?
It's really libertarians and
Yeah.
even people on the right. I mean, I've been meeting with some really conservative people who are really not libertarian in the full sense of the word. And they're like kind of, like fangirling over RFK. And I'm
Fangirling is
like,
a good word for it.
I'm like, wow. Okay. But, so I was thinking about that and, the polls and whatever, they're not going to let him compete against Joe Biden. Nobody's going to be allowed to compete against Joe Biden. So, I mean, we all know that. But so we have all of this drama that makes it look like they're having an actual competition. But, when you look at polls like that, I just wonder, because we always hear the loudest voices on both the left and the right are also the most extreme. And with all of this stuff that's come out about COVID and the vaccines that we know now that is incontrovertible proof that all of the outrage and the fear was just not founded. I wonder how many Democrats that are kind of in the middle there look at that and feel betrayed, but they don't dare say anything out loud. But if somebody, but they hear, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying these things, and they are like, I agree with that, and but they're not going to say that out loud or on the media or in public. But if somebody calls them and they can say that anonymously that they agree with him, maybe they're the silent majority there. I don't know.
Chris Morrill says, remember when Howard Dean was all the rage in 2004? It's early yet. Doug H.
Yeah.
says, Howard Dean. Now, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. Thank you very much for the Star Wars reference there, Doug H. We appreciate that. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're grateful to have you here. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on this morning so that you can get more great news and updates to get you started for your day right. We're speaking to Camelia Peterson right now about the love affair with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I can't listen to the guy for very long because I know that this is superficial of me, and especially for somebody coming from a guy who used to listen to hours of Ron Paul floor speeches on the House of Representatives. But the guy's voice drives me crazy. Ron Paul, I could take. We got to end the Fed, and we got to return the gold standard, and we got and I can take that. But Robert F. Kennedy's voice, to me, I think it's a turnoff for a lot of people, to be honest.
I do too, which is something that has surprised me a little bit, with his popularity, because he is difficult to listen to for very long, and it's actually hard to understand him. It's not just that, it's grating or it's an annoying tone or whatever. It's just literally difficult to understand his words. He can't do anything about that. So I, have a lot of appreciation for the fact that he gets out there and does it anyway. But yeah, I don't really get it. And I wonder when they did that poll, that favorability poll, I didn't see like who was in the sample for that. If they were just targeting, if they were targeting across the political spectrum, or if it was just, Democrat or not. I mean, if they're going all the way across the political spectrum, that I think would explain a lot about why that's so high for him.
Well, what's interesting is that, he has a higher favorability rating than many of the other presidential candidates, according to a new poll. It says Biden and Trump had the second highest percentage of respondents viewing them favorably. So the candidates who are the biggest candidates in the parties have a lower favorability rating than RFK. So, I mean, I guess there's just a lot of people who are kind of like, you know what? We like seeing this Kennedy guy doing what he does. He's crazy, but he's our kind of crazy.
Right. Well, and he's new. Well, he's sort of new, but I mean, like to the general public, he's probably kind of this is kind of sort of new, and it's novel and it's different and it's interesting, little dramatic to see this person rise to the front. The other front runners, at least on the right, and Biden too, like they're kind of old hat, they've been around. We've been hearing them ad nauseum. So I kind of get that.
Yeah, I'm looking at news articles this morning, and the New York Times is attacking him, saying he's no Jack Kennedy, right? Other people are saying, how could 20% of liberal Dems back him? He's crazy. But then if you look at the Democrats, they back bumbling Biden and crazy Kamala. So, I mean, it's not too far of a stretch to think that so many Democrats would support RFK Jr. if you look at the idiots who are actually in charge, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have no explanation for why Democrats do the things they do. Look at the primary that they had last go around and the people they had in that. They had Tulsi Gabbard, for God's sake, and they still went with Biden.
I know. Well, Tulsi was awesome. She was so good in those Democratic debates when she was taking on Kamala Harris. I mean, that was some juicy stuff.
Yeah, and Tulsi is really kind of like the RFK of this time. You know, she's saying a lot of the same kind of sensible things, but if she couldn't make it, I don't know how he can make it, because she was well spoken and easy to listen to and easy on the eyes. So I'm just saying, she had a whole lot more going for her, and even she couldn't make it.
Yeah. One of the things that Naomi Klein said about the RFK Jr. Candidacy is that he's tapping into rage at the Democratic Party itself, which feels to many like a hostage situation. There seems to be no way of challenging entrenched power, not open primaries, not incumbent primaries, not third parties, not getting in and trying to change the system from the inside. All we've been told since as long as I can remember is that it will help to elect Republicans, but it's kind of this political straitjacket that provokes rebellion as well as some irrational behavior. There's probably a lot of that behind RFK.
I do think so, and I do wonder, like, how long the Democratic Party or people who vote Democrat, not the party itself, but people who vote Democrat, how long they will put up with that, because I mean, their party is not even trying to hide it anymore. I mean, they're just, flat out putting it out there that they don't care what you think. They're going to put, whoever they want to be in there, they're going to put them in there.
What do you think about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his campaign? You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Do you think that a lot of these libertarians who are saying they're going to cross over and support Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will really make much of an impact other than on the internet?
No, I don't think so. I'm sorry, but so when you say libertarians, you've got, I mean, that can mean a whole lot of things, but if you're talking about actually big L libertarians, no, because they are going to vote for whoever is on the libertarian ticket, which makes that pool of people who are fangirling over RFK Jr. even smaller. So no.
Okay. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Again, text us today at 573-319-1586. Camelia, I had another topic for you that I put on the docket that I'd be curious to get your take on this one, because as I'm not a parent, I wonder what your take is on this story about how bulldozer parents harm their children worse than helicopter parents. Bulldozer parents is a new generation that bulldozes all obstacles out of their children's way. A child psychotherapist explains how to support your children without suffocating them. The parenting problems stem from the bulldozer parents' own childhood. So essentially, parents who make it so that their children's lives have no challenges, right? They don't go outside and play or without a proper hand sanitizer and things like that. Are you a bulldozer parent, Camelia?
I am not a bulldozer parent.
Lies.
I guess I had not heard the term bulldozer parent before, but before people like to say that this is an American issue, this permissive parent. Well, it's not even permissive parenting. It's like overbearing parenting. But it was interesting to me that this article actually came from another country. I don't know if it was Germany or if it was Dutch or what. Anyway, but it was translated from another language, from another country, but it applies here too. And, when you were talking about Gen Z, that kind of made me think of that as well. Because we do, like, parents don't want to, you don't want your kid to have difficulty in life, and you want the best for them. And so for a lot of parents anymore, because they have this mindset, I don't want my child to have to face the struggles and obstacles that I did. So I'm going to make that path easier for them and, clear the way. And that's a bad idea.
How do you avoid it though? Because I mean, I can imagine the temptation to be protective of your kids is insanely strong. So I mean, you see your kid getting ready to trip over a rock, and you're just kind of like, or a pit bull charges at them, and you're like, good luck.
No. Okay. Balance and everything, right? Good judgment.
Right.
So no, we don't want to allow physical harm. It's kind of like, you don't actually let your child touch the hot stove in order to learn the lesson. You might smack their hand and scare the bejesus out of them so that they get the association, but you don't
Smack
let
their
them touch the
hand?
hot
You mean you
stove.
will abuse your child? You will actually use physical force again? You will initiate violence against your child?
Well, if you want to call that violence, I guess so.
Wow, Camellia, I thought I knew you. Wow, it's
No,
amazing.
well, the thing is though, there's all of this parenting stuff, all of this parenting advice. I remember, when Laura was on before and she was talking about all these Facebook groups and all the moms groups and all of this stuff that there is just like you get from all sides. And it reminds me, here just not too long ago, our friend Jason Howerton, he used to work for the Blaze, posted a question. He's a dad with a couple of little boys. And he posted a question on Twitter and said, give me your best parenting advice. So of course, people are giving him their parenting advice. And so I said, you know what? I was like, this is my advice. Don't listen to anybody else on this thread and say, because their experience is not yours. They don't know your kids. And the only other thing besides that I did put in there is like, and say yes as much as you can. That's something that I have learned and I think is important. But it's true, it's like your kids. Your kids are different from every other kid. And so you have to use your best judgment. And what everybody else says is, for the most part, doesn't matter. It's not that you shouldn't take any advice, but people like to give advice and sometimes their advice is not going to fit your kids. But when you talk about allowing your children to fail, that's good advice, because you do need to allow your children to fail. And we've never been into sports, but I think that is probably a valuable reason for children to be involved in sports, is it gives them that opportunity to win and to fail, and it's probably even a little easier for them if they're doing it as a team. But we've not ever been into a lot of competitive things when it comes to education, except for Felicity got into speech and debate this last year and did competitive for the first time and shocked us all because she's pretty introverted and she was doing dramatic interpretation. And so she won first place in her competition on her very first one. Whoa. So of course she was over the moon, and we're like, we get to debate number 2 or, to competition number 2. And she didn't win. And I had been thinking ahead of time that, it would probably be good for her if she didn't, because she kind of needs that reality check. Yes. And it was hard. It was hard for her. And so, but you know what? Third time around, third competition, she went back in, she got out of that funk, she prepared more, and her mindset for that competition was so much better for having won, but also failed.
Yeah, because that failure is like, all right, I need to adjust my technique and I need to see what I can do better, because if you think you're perfect, there's no room for self-improvement. Makes good sense. Yeah. Hey, Camellia, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go?
Well, touching back on the presidential primary stuff real quick, I mentioned to you the other day that Vivek Ramaswamy on the Republican side was going to have some big announcement, and people were like, "Oh, he's gonna pull out of the race and endorse Trump," and he didn't. But it was very close, and I'm just waiting for somebody to say "I hope he sees this, bro," because he basically did a big grandstanding thing where he was challenging all of the other candidates to come out and give their public, support for.
He's a simp.
I know, and it's just the craziest thing. So anybody that remotely thinks that Vivek Ramaswamy has a chance in hell is deluding themselves.
Careful! You got those Vivek fanboys out there. You never know if you're going to need them in the future. There are a lot of Vivek fanboys. That's Camellia Peterson. Thank you very much for your time today, and thanks for actually putting on clothes.
Great day, everyone.
Have a great day. Appreciate you very much. Old aircraft guy over on the live stream says that I cannot agree that my children belong to the government. Your kids are our kids. Their freedom was granted by their creator, not granted by any government. Good for you, brother. Very much like to hear that. Well, there's some good news. I have got an announcement to make. Bleed American, The Battle of Athens, a documentary produced by yours truly. I told you that this was coming when I started the Wake Up America show, that the Wake Up America show was going to be a way for us to stair-step into full-length documentaries and eventually, hopefully one day, actual full-length feature films. And it looks as if that is now the next step. The next step has begun. Before I continue this very briefly, I do want to give a big shout out and a thank you to Joe Spinella. He just dropped $20 in the tip jar, said Your kids are your property, period. We're a common law country. It's in the Bill of Rights. Government cannot administrate man's property because it doesn't have any rights, only duty, obligations, and privileges. Thank you very much for that, Joe, for that super chat and for that awesome point of view that you shared there. Super grateful for that. I want to share with you a bit of a story that I am eager to tell. I've been working on this for the last couple of months to get prepared to tell this story about this documentary I would like to make about the Battle of Athens. In 1946, veterans from World War II returned to their community in Tennessee to find it overrun with political corruption, shakedowns, and election fraud. The veterans ran their own slate of candidates to put a stop to it. But when the political machine attempted to count ballots in secret by hiding the votes in the local jail, the veterans laid siege. This is the story of the Battle of Athens, an epic tale of American Revolution that occurred in Tennessee in 1946. World War II veterans who were sick and tired of the political graft, the violence, the murders, and the shakedown that were being committed by local government officials actually fought back with guns. It's a story of the Second Amendment. It's a story about election fraud, and it's a story that I would love to be able to tell. And I am going to tell with my very first feature-length documentary. And here's the plan. So in order for me to be able to produce this documentary, I am going to ask you, I'm going to pull a Bernie Sanders right now and say, I am once again asking you for your financial support. I am trying to raise $10,000 to help finance all of the production costs that I will need to be able to travel to Athens, Tennessee next month for an event that will happen that is a commemoration festival for the battle. And I was inspired to create this documentary because on the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Athens, I was told that a commemoration festival had kicked off and had caused controversy in the local town, with some of the residents of the town who were on one side of the battle that were in support of the festival, and other people in the town who were related to the political opposition at the time who do not go to the festival, who are upset about the festival and its activities there. And therefore I saw, an opportunity. If there's drama in a small town in Tennessee and it's related to the Second Amendment, especially election fraud, well, what could be a better story for us to tell than the Battle of Athens? Now, this is a story that has been told before in certain ways. There was a Hallmark movie that was made in the 1990s. There have been some YouTubers who have made videos about it, but nobody has traveled to this festival and made and done interviews with the people who are putting this on and gotten their point of view on this one. So what I'd like to ask you for this morning is for your financial support to get me and my wife and my two dogs to Tennessee. We found out it was actually cheaper for us to take the dogs with us than to put them in a board. So my lovely wife is going to drive with me down to Athens, Tennessee on July 27th or 27th for the festival. It's on the 29th. I'm going to spend several days down there doing photography, taking pictures, recording interviews with the local citizens, and trying to get both sides of the story about this festival and getting interviews from people who attend this festival so that I can tell the story of the Battle of Athens. And here's why I need your financial support. In order for me to be able to produce this documentary in the way that it needs, I want to be able to prove to investors that we have an actual audience for these ideas, and that you as an audience member would want to actually see this documentary. Because the first $10,000 of this that I will raise will be the seed money that I will be able to use to actually produce this documentary. Andy Opperman just dropped $100 in the kitty. Thank you, Andy. Thank you. That's a big, generous donation, and we appreciate that very much. And the reason the amount is $10,000 is because I've put together the budget that it will take for me to be able to buy the camera equipment, the audio equipment, and the lighting equipment that I will be able to need to set up in the interview. I've already booked the local town's historical society, and the historical society will be allowing me to set up for the interviews. So I'll be able to shoot the interviews there, talk to the local townspeople, shoot the festival, talk to the people at the festival, try and get both sides of the story. And then I will then take those interviews and put them together in what I will call a sizzle reel. And that sizzle reel, I'm going to then take and pitch to Amazon Prime, Netflix. I'm going to go for broke and go big. And at that point, I will then try and raise $200,000 from bigger distributors so that I can actually reproduce and recreate the Battle of Athens. So here's what this means. What this means is that at a minimum, the $10,000 will allow me to produce a documentary about the festival and the events and the interviews with the editing and recording techniques that I can produce on my own. But if I can go out there and find an investor who wants the tax breaks, because a lot of times these states have tax breaks for these kinds of things. If I can find an investor, then I'll be able to actually reproduce the Battle of Athens with, real guns and blanks and dynamite, and actually shoot this and to shoot and recreate the Battle of Athens in its former glory, so that I can restore it and bring it to the big screen for your viewing pleasure. So I'd like to ask you all, if you wouldn't mind today, to make a generous donation to the Battle of Athens documentary, with the working title right now, Bleed American. I'm going to drop the Give, Send, Go link in there for you right now. If you would like to donate there, you can. You can also donate here on YouTube like Andy Opperman did, or at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. The one advantage to donating through the Give, Send, Go link is that people can publicly see how far along we are to our goal. But I will, Andy, I'll drop that. I'll put $100 in there, Andy, that you gave me, into the Give, Send, Go, so that people can see that that you did it. And everybody who makes a donation to the Battle of Athens documentary that I will be producing next month is going to have their name in the credits. So Andy Opperman, you're going to have that. You're going to have that credit on your on the end of the end credits of the documentary. So if somebody would do me a favor and drop the link, but if you want to drop the link over there on the YouTube channel as well, then please do so. I just dropped it over on Rumble, but the link is also posted to the very top of my Twitter account. It's the Give, Send, Go link, Bleed American, the Battle of Athens documentary. If you would do me a favor and make a generous donation to help me to get this documentary on its feet, to help to defray the costs of driving there, getting an Airbnb, buying expensive cameras, lights, and sound equipment. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, what about the stuff you use for the live stream? We're definitely going to take it there, but most of this stuff is podcast quality. It's not feature-length documentary quality, so I've got to either rent or buy some more top quality stuff. So $10,000 will make that documentary happen. It will absolutely happen with that budget. But if I can find an investor for the bigger bucks who wants that tax break, and I can possibly find some film grants as well for historical documentaries that I will be applying for, then we might possibly get it in some film festivals and maybe even achieve wider distribution. How cool would that be? We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericashow.com/support. Now, Where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupamericashow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great. Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. All right, well, we allowed her to have a little 2-week vacation from her regular weekly appearances on the show, but we demanded, I say demanded, that she come back and join us again. She's Daniela Pensack. She's a field coordinator for Turning Point USA, and she's back from vacay. Good morning, Daniela, and don't ever leave us like that again.
Oh, good morning. I promise I'll do my best not to do that again.
So we're grateful to have you here, Daniela, and you bring a lot of excellent news reporting to the table today. The story that you shared with me from the Associated Press really caught my eye. The headline is this: Democrats and Republicans share core values, but still distrust each other. Break this down for us.
Yeah, the survey was done by the University of Chicago, and it was published by Associated Press. And what the survey had revealed is that people on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, pretty much agree 9 times out of 10 that they agree on core values of compassion. I believe fairness was the second one, and then personal responsibility. But what they also found is that less than a third of people on both sides think that someone else of another political affiliation are they disagree that the people of another political affiliation share the same values. So what the survey has essentially found is that people on both sides of the political aisle pretty much share core values, but they disagree that people on the other side do. And this is just showing that the political polarization in America is just getting wider and deeper, despite being an already very much bipolar political system. And it very much could be a byproduct of the echo chambers that we are finding ourselves in, particularly in social media, in which they are designed and the algorithms are designed to create these echo chambers.
Well, what was just so funny is that they share so much in common, and yet they hate each other so much. I mean, it kind of reminds me of what the libertarian criticism is of the two parties. The uniparty is that they really just have a lot in common. I've got to do a very brief segue, first of all, and say thank you and happy birthday to Studio 314, John Burroughs. Happy birthday. 50th birthday today to John Burroughs. He's a big supporter of the Wake Up America show. He helps to bring more content just like the stuff that you're hearing, the guests like Daniela Pensack to the table. So thank you very much to John Burroughs and happy birthday, as well as Anthony Jones, who says I should reach out to Tim Pool for the documentary I'm making because he's giving money to creators to fight the culture war. He'll mention it in the Discord as well. Rock Chalk. Thank you, Anthony. I will do that. I will try and reach out to Tim Pool and see if he will help me to produce that documentary. We shall see. All right, Daniela. So this, were there any other findings in this poll that you found interesting to share?
Oh, that was just the main issue of the survey. And again, you know, the polarization that is happening in the United States, I think we can all agree that it's becoming very much it's becoming extreme. It's getting to a point where it's gonna end in a civil war. And it's actually quite scary to see that, you know, people are blind to the fact that basic common sense, reasonable stances like fairness, personal responsibility can't be agreed on, and we assume that people on the other political side don't agree on that. But these are just, you know, common sense values that I think most humans share. But because of the political nature of American politics, the divide is very much dangerous, and it's almost forcing us to not consider the fact that we are all just human and we all just come from a common place of human decency.
You probably, you work for Turning Point USA as a field coordinator for high schools. You probably get a lot of weird interactions with people who just make assumptions about who you are and what you believe based on your affiliation with Turning Point. Am I wrong?
Yeah, unfortunately, that does happen all the time. And it also happens on both sides. You know, conservatives assume I have one stance on issues, and, you know, liberals assume that I have another stance on other issues. And sometimes both are wrong. That's why I like to call myself a libertarian, simply because I think that certain elements of the conservative right are going too far on one direction, as the left is going too far in another direction. And socially and culturally, we are seeing this split becoming more divisive because of that. And I think a lot of the conservative reaction could be warranted because of what's happening on the left, but at the same time, I don't think it's a valid solution to what's happening either.
Daniela, I'd like to switch subjects here to another story that you brought to my that you brought to me. I did talk about it yesterday, but before I do, just out of curiosity, so I can kind of get your where you're coming from on this one. Are you white?
Yes, I am white.
Okay, I don't
Yeah.
want to assume here. So, you never want to assume these days anymore. Maybe you don't identify as such. But apparently, a white Starbucks manager has won $25 million claiming she was fired over her race after the arrest of black men. Explain this story to me like I'm five.
Okay, so basically what happened is that Shannon Phillips, like you already mentioned and touched on the other day, but she was uh, put on leave or fired because she had refused two black men to enter the store's bathrooms after they were basically, you could argue, loitering. They were waiting for another individual, but they didn't purchase any products from Starbucks, and so they were effectively, you know, kicked out. And because of that, she was arrested and then let go afterwards by the company. And you know, that caused a big stir and conversation in the nation saying, you know, whether or not this was valid. And what the jury has found unanimously is that she was let go because she was white, and that is a violation of her civil rights. Just point blank, period. That's what it was. And so as a result, she has been awarded the 25 million. Now, I do think that $25 million is much. I don't know if it's
A lot.
necessary that I don't I don't know if that amount is necessary, but at the same time, it is sending a very strong message to Americans saying that, you know, white Americans aren't going to stand for putting up with lesser rights simply because of the racist narrative that's being America today.
What was interesting about this is that apparently she was not involved at all in any way, shape, or form with this incident that occurred in Starbucks.
Oh, okay. She was. I thought I was under the impression that she had tried to get them. to leave the store afterwards.
No, so she was a regional manager because and like the Starbucks was under her purview, but the reason why she actually won the money was because she didn't have anything to do with that incident. She actually tried to help the company with all the protests and support the security of the stores. And it was this deal where they were telling her manager, who was black, told her to fire a manager who was white, who also didn't work at that store, as an act of retaliation. So it was like they were trying to they fired all these white people who had nothing to do with it, who weren't even working at the store. So that's how they were able to prove that, that she was innocent of this, because they said that it was because she like didn't do her job correctly. But in
Right.
reality, it was just that they wanted to like get a couple of white scalps, if you will. Pretty wild, eh?
Yeah, no, and again, the narrative that has been being pushed in America and has been being pushed in the last few years about, the racist narrative, and that there is no reverse racism happening in America whatsoever. That is definitely a major problem, and I think that this is sending a huge message to corporations nationwide, and that they should really much be careful about what they're doing, because as far as I understand, this case also had spurred a lot of like anti-racist protests in America as well. This is back in 2018, I believe. And they use fodder and I think people on that side use fodder any way they can to create these protests and to create like an uprising, and an overall narrative that reverse racism doesn't exist and anti-whiteism doesn't exist in America, when it very much does. And a lot of corporations try to feed into that as well, just to get, brownie points by their consumer base. But that's illegal, and that could go against people's civil rights. And so I'm glad that this case, was examined further, and that the jury did result in that outcome.
No kidding. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm grateful to have you here. We have our regular guest, Daniela Pensack, on right now. She's a field coordinator for Turning Point USA. Daniela, Bud Light officially dethroned as the top beer in the U.S. market. Reasons to celebrate?
I think so. Modelo is now the top contender and has dethroned Bud Light. Finally, I believe they're standing at 8% of all consumption in America, or beer consumption, and Bud Light has dipped down to 7%, which has been a long time coming, especially since the recent partnerships they've had in the last couple months. And I think people are saying, or analysts are saying, that if Bud Light doesn't pull through by July 4th, or by that week of July 4th, they're pretty much done as a company, at least for a long while, because they really dug themselves in a grave here. And a lot of people, and especially like newer conservatives, are saying that voting with your wallet doesn't work, or like only local boycotts work. Boycotts of large chains won't work at all. But we are seeing it happen in real time, that very much is possible. Now, it is a result of the ongoing social issues, especially during Gay Pride Month, that we're seeing people on the left making a loud voice for the LGBT community. And so as a result, conservatives may respond to that in kind. So it is kind of a byproduct of the social situation right now. But at the same time, this is what's necessary to show the message to Americans everywhere that you can make a stand and that you can vote with your wallet.
I agree, and I think it's interesting to see that the second most popular beer was Modelo, so a Mexican beer. I guess they are taking over the country. Daniela Pensack, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go today?
Sure. Quite a few things, but most of
Go
all,
ahead.
and this is a topic that I am passionate about, and that consumers do have a ultimate choice and vote in the country, and it's not just by voting in the ballot, but it is voting with your wallet. And like I just mentioned previously, I have been seeing a concerning trend, especially like Generation Z conservatives, saying that we need more social safety nets. These are people on the right saying that, and I think that's concerning. I don't think we need to go that far in promoting those policies in order to get the message across that the left is going too far in some of their messaging. It very much is simple as being a conscious consumer, and I think more people need to really run full speed ahead with that narrative, because that is more important and that is more safe in the long run than just wanting the government to provide social safety nets for you in the long term.
Looks like the live stream viewers agree with you, Daniela. Studio 314, the birthday boy, says exactly, Daniela. Vote with your wallet. Daniela, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate you. It's good to see you again. We'll see you again
Yeah,
next
thank
week.
you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by our friend John Burke at shellshockcbd.com. I threw my back out last week, and today is like the first day that I'm actually starting to feel better, and I know why. It's thanks to these awesome painkiller products over at shellshockcbd.com. Have you tried it yet? I want to encourage all of the listeners of the Wake Up America show to at least visit Shell Shock CBD today and try one product from his excellent collection of goods. And here's the thing. From shellshockcbd.com, you can get a variety of CBD and Delta 8 products. So some of these products are going to have that psychoactive effect that I know that some of you are looking for, like the delicious chocolate Delta bar that you can see pictured right down here on your screen right now. That baby's got 40 milligrams of Delta 8. That will be, come with me and you'll be in a land of pure imagination if you take the Delta bar. But if you're really just into pain relief, this is my product that I recommend. This has saved my life in the past couple of weeks. The Roll-On Roll-Out CBD Freeze Roll-On. As I have dealt with the struggles of getting older and fatter, the back problems have begun, I guess, and it just started last week. I used this CBD Freeze Roll-On to help my back, and God, I don't know what I would have done without it. Here's the deal. You get 10% off if you use my code AP4Liberty, which you can see down at the bottom of the screen right there. Visit shellshockcbd.com today. Get yourself some delicious hemp tea or perhaps some tasty pineapple gummies, right? CBD here. And here's the good news. If you try some of these gummies and they don't perform the function that you wanted them to perform, if they don't work for you, get your money back. John will give you your money back because he believes in these products, and as a user of these products, I agree. They are absolutely effective, and if you don't believe me, try them today with that 10% discount with that code AP for Liberty, and then if you don't like the products, you can get your money back. There's a little Trumpy Buddha there. You can see that's the silky Trumpy Buddha there. Love it. All right, we're gonna I think I'm not going to go to commercial break, actually. How about that? What do you think? Are you happy for that? There you go. We've only got 10 more minutes left. Might as well do the fun stories before we go. Burke has great products. I use them, says Mo Donnell 1672. Good morning, Mo Donnell. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. You can see why I'm happy to endorse his products. Visit him now at shellshockcbd.com. CBD.com. There you go. There's the website. Use that code AP for Liberty to get 10% off. Again, money back guarantee says you really can't lose. Doug H says there should have been a pregnant pause there. If you're into real pain, relief. Very funny. Very funny. All right. My last story before I let you go. It's always the kicker story, right? Something silly, something funny, something that's interesting that we can move on with our days and start our days for that people will enjoy. Regrettable, ugly fashion trends of the 1980s. And this one offended me as somebody who enjoys 80s fashion, as you'll note from my wardrobe for the Wake Up America show. Very 80s, neon themed and inspired. Well, the 80s, of course, is always described as the decade of excess. And most of the fashion trends from that era were very unconventional, right? But a lot of people say that like Camellia Peterson says that it's ugly.
No, God!
Yeah.
No, God!
Which I think, boo to you, Camellia, because I love the 1980s fashion trends. But one of the most notable fashion trends of the 1980s, which actually I really don't care for, were the shoulder pads. Do you remember these? This trend that kind of tried to like make women's silhouettes appear like stronger and more authoritative, but it was just very like these chunky. And then a lot of times like women wouldn't wear them properly, so like the shoulder pads would like be coming down, like falling down onto their boobs or like behind them and things like that. So it depended a lot of times on what you would wear, right? But like then everything suddenly had shoulder pads, like blazers, dresses, like even casual wear had these shoulder pads in them, kind of like football players in disguise, right? But one of the big fashion trends in the 1980s that I still wear a jean jacket, and everybody loved denim, right? Especially acid wash denim, right? It was very gaudy, right? The acid wash trend, I didn't really go for too much in the 1980s because it wasn't like I was choosing when I was a child. I wasn't choosing what I would wear. I would just wear whatever my parents would give me, and we lived in the country, so it's like nobody cared if Austin had like the latest tracksuit or whatever, right? So, but like unfortunately, it always looked like people were wearing something that like it had an unfortunate laundry mishap. Remember, it'd be like acid washed, tons of holes in the jeans, and that was the 1980s, right? But then, of course, there was the fitness fashion that a lot of people had that was like people wearing leg warmers during workouts, right? Which I actually really appreciate. And I still feel like ladies wearing leg warmers is a thing, and I honestly I like it a lot, to be quite honest. So, yeah. You can text the show today with your thoughts at 573-319-1586. Good to see Valor Warrior making his first comment on the show today. We always like to welcome new people he says the demon craps are the new fascists. We have to remember the Nazis also deemed German children as state properties before. Very true. Valor Warrior, we must fight against the collectivization and the Marxists who wish to take over our society and make your kids our kids. Your kids are your kids, my kids are my kids, and the government should stay out of it. Good to see you, Valor, and welcome to the show. We're grateful to have you here. You are among friends. Rare Camellia says Aquanet, and then Joni Rankin says Big Harry. Yes, Chris Morales reminds us of the term Canadian tuxedo. Of course, neon was a big trend in the 1980s, and I love neon. And as you can see from the Wake Up America show, the entire theme all the way around here, the neon theme, I call it the synthwave neon theme. You know, whenever I switch back and forth between scenes for the Wake Up America show, you can see there the nice little neon theme. But the background for the show, so I'm going to show you real quick the Please Stand By screen. That background is like, it's called a synthwave. It's a little chicken with like all that stuff. That's like a synthwave logo background, very 80s inspired. So as you can tell, I'm a big fan of it. The shoulder pads, not so much. Wasn't the biggest fan of the shoulder pads theme from the 1980s. Could do without it. Acid wash jeans. Never really thought that those were all that attractive. Didn't really own any. What about yourself? Spandex. Well, it kind of depends on the spandex, right? If the girls were wearing spandex, fine. I did have, I will admit, a spandex pair of biker shorts when I was a kid, because like everybody was wearing the damn biker shorts. And so it's kind of like, oh God, I had to have a pair of biker shorts. Spandex on ladies, it's okay. I mean, they kind of look like children if you see them right there, the way that what they're wearing, the way they're wearing it. So this kind of spandex trend really didn't go for it. But the side ponytail, what do you think? I mean, it does. You know, I guess it's sort of like weird to be looking at something like that at my age these days. So yeah, not into it. The makeup, okay, will admit, was horrendous. Although I still feel as if women do this to themselves, and men do this to themselves too, because of the weird gender bending. Was there like the androgynous look? Did that really get pioneered in the 1980s? Or is that just me? Yeah, the makeup, little weird. Fanny packs. You know what? Don't care. Love me some fanny packs. Basically, I wear a fanny pack whenever I like need to like go to a trip or do something important, and I need to have a little extra gear. Love me a fanny pack. The mullet, and the mullet is back. Like people love the mullet. I see kids with mullets these days. I'm like, you know what? It's cool. Then you'll see kids with like, what are they? The Pit Viper sunglasses now too, which is pretty cool. The perm. All of us remember the perm. You know, here's the thing. Like this girl is obviously like hot, right? So she can get away with it, but most people can't pull off the perm. Like this girl would be pretty without the perm, right? She's 1980s hot, but like what's funny is that now she's like an old woman with like wrinkles and stuff. But the dancewear theme, still good, still got it. Love the dancewear theme. Still making me horny. The scrunchie, those I guess are coming back. Yeah, really? The scrunchies? I guess they're okay. Kind of weird, you know, childish. The bucket hat, never really liked it. They wore it in, what was that movie? Clueless? In like the 1990s. That was like the start of the 1990s. Clueless was the official start of the 90s. Tracksuits, had to have one of those. Definitely wore tracksuits in the 1980s and the 90s, but I was like always behind the time in fashion. Now I'm like back into the 1980s, so I'm wearing here. Stirrup pants? What the hell were stirrup pants? Stretchy pants. Oh, with a strap under the foot, right? a very triangular shape. They don't like the legs. Yeah, stirrup pants. Yeah, I guess you did. Futuristic sunglasses, those are coming back. Not these exactly, but like the pit viper ones. Very cool. Crimped hair. Kind of missed that, to be honest. Liked it a lot. Huge earrings. Nah, not really into it. Maybe for like a music video or something like that. Cotton sweats. I don't know, ladies. These are all like things for you. Popped collars. Yes, and that did come back, and some guys still do it, but it's kind of like, hey, my dad's a lawyer. This is obviously actor Rob Lowe, but plastic charm necklaces, never was into it, but again, I was not a girl. Mom jeans, you know what? I see these girls on TikTok wearing these mom jeans anymore, and they have got to go. No, hell no. Mom jeans have got to go. All right, and so do I. Thanks so much for tuning into the Wake Up America show. Don't forget to donate to my new documentary to build out a documentary about the Battle of Athens. If you don't know much about it just yet, make sure you check it out over on Give, Send, Go, the Battle of Athens documentary. We raised almost $600 so far, of which like 250 of it just came in this morning on the Wake Up America show. Help to support the cause of economic freedom and personal liberty. A man's rights rest in 3 boxes: the ballot box, the jury box, and the cartridge box. Learn about one of the most compelling, dramatic, but least studied events in American history, about a World War II veterans who overthrew a corrupt local government by force of arms. Help us to get to our goal of $10,000. We've got 598 raised so far, and somebody else I saw donated $2 this morning. If you could kick in a little bit to help me to spread this message about this history, important history, and make my very first feature-length documentary, I would be super grateful, and get your name in the credits. All right, well, I gotta go. Tomorrow's Family Friday, which means my beautiful wife, Stephanie Peterson, my smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife, Stephanie, will be with us for Family Friday. It's gonna be a great show, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.